The one thing about truth is that you're probably not going to like it. Like Father Turbo Qualls, Serbian Orthodox priest, former skinhead, and tattoo artist, tattooed from head to toe, and the video comes on, and it's a black dude.
You need to contact Cyprian. I'm going to just leave it at that. And I was like, what is going on here? What is going on here?
My involvement in Bitcoin, the most profound things for me was actually living through schisms. To this day, I say Ethereum is Islam and Vitalik is Muhammad. I say Dash is the Mormons. The true things, the truest things, the things that are the most worth doing are simple and difficult. But you look at the praxis of orthodoxy, and it's when I encountered it and I was like, oh, this is simple. Do your morning and evening prayers, an akathist here and there, fast on the fast days. Right? What could be a better reflection of the simple and difficult than a fast? When you encounter the truth, one of the ways that you'll know it's the truth is it will be simple and difficult. What could be simpler and more difficult than the cross? Nailed to a cross, to two pieces of wood. What could be more simple and what could be more difficult than that? Bitcoin is so fractal in that way. If you're not properly oriented toward God and toward Christ when you approach Bitcoin, because it's a spiritual technology, and so what you see around it is you see people who were materialists, and without knowing what they're doing, forming a cult, a religion around it.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the study of stuff. I say this every time, especially from the moment I interviewed Father Turbo onward. I have a special guest today. And I say that because I always pick really great guests. This particular guest right here, not only did I've been putting off having a conversation with this gentleman for a long time. I had my reasons, and many of you guys were always telling me privately, you got to talk to this guy. You got to get this guy on. You got to talk to this guy. You got to talk to this guy. So finally it's happened. I want to welcome Cyprian to the show. Welcome, my dear friend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be quite a ride. Like I prepared a whole bunch of notes, which I don't always do. But I think I'm just going to go off the cuff just because we have a lot in common. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to set up the conversation and I'm just going to drop it in your lap and you just take it any which way you want.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a lot in common. So first of all, we both have an occult background. Mine was more hermeticism and alchemy. You seem like you kind of dabbled in some of this stuff too. Well, now you seem, I know it from a lot of the things you say. You did an interview with Jordan Peterson because I went back and I watched a bunch of the Vin Armani show, and you introed it by saying he influenced you, Alan Watts and Joseph Campbell, three of my big influences. And Carl Jung, those former influences. Anarchy. I definitely considered myself an agorist and an anarcho-capitalist at one point. I went down the Jeff Berwick path. James Corbett, who I still adore. I still love James. Derek Bros, Anarcho-Poco, the whole nine yards. In 2021, you made a move. You went to Saipan. I came to Mexico for the exact same reasons. And we have a lot of friends in common. So I think a lot of this will lead to some interesting conversation. One thing I did notice by going through your previous interviews is the massive change in character. Huge. You're like a totally different human being completely. I'm sure anyone that's watching this knows exactly why. And we're going to end up there. But take us to the beginning. Tell us what you think is relevant about your story, whatever you think fits in, and build to the point where you're introduced to the concept, idea, and the actual Bitcoin thing. Can you take me to that point? So whatever you want to say about your upbringing.
Yeah, so I was raised in Southern California. And I think one of the things that's important about me, or one of the things that I've started to very much learn about myself, and I think that it's true of a lot of practitioners of magic, or people who find themselves moving toward the occult, is this idea of like liminality, of somebody who's an in-between person. I think that those tend to be I mean, even just down to the idea of like the hermit magician in the woods who's kind of like half in nature and half in civilization, and it's the shaman character
Uh-huh.
is a liminal person, right? They're sort of in the tribe but not in the tribe. They're sort of like, animal but not animal, even down to like the idea of a shape-shifting shaman and all of these things, right? It's like
Hmm.
magic is that liminal, it is that liminal space of the connection of the spiritual and the material, and like who is the person who's riding in that space. So I think some people, we have a liminal pattern to us. So like I think one big thing is I'm multiracial, and
Hmm.
my father's black, my mother's Mexican, but even in that case, they're like liminal versions of it. So my father's family is from the Sea Islands of Georgia, actually Jekyll Island.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're Gullah Geechee people who are already different than other Black Americans. They have a different sort of history, different language, all of those things. And then my mother is family is from northern Mexico, but their background is they're Sephardic Jews. So
Okay.
so there's already a liminality within that, and then it's liminality on top of liminality. And so like I've always felt both outside of almost any situation that I was in, but I developed a very keen ability to I think because of that, to adjust myself to the environments that I've been in. And then
Okay.
software is my background. My father was a technology entrepreneur, my mother an educator, and you know in my early 20s and late 20s as well, I was mostly focused on the entertainment side of software, started some businesses, had some exits early on, was doing some very innovative things. And again, I think part of that is like that sort of liminal space. And I found myself in LA. I'm from Southern California, and I found myself in LA in the early 2000s when the whole like pickup artist thing was going on, which
Hmm.
is again another very sort of liminal idea. These people who are like, you're in nightlife for different reasons than other people. It's almost like you almost
The
felt like
game.
a bit of a vampire almost. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like that kind of thing, and became very very good at it, very well known, and then by a series of events found myself on a TV show that was on Showtime for several years called Gigolos, and that whole time throughout that whole thing I had been, and not dabbling in the occult, but like as heavy as I could get into it. That was actually
Hmm.
one of the things that interested me in the electronic music scene. And I was a DJ, but I mean, even in my teens, I was raised in the Southern California, like in San Bernardino County, basically that desert. And so we were going to the full moon parties,
Hmm.
and doing psychedelics. The people who eventually became this would be like Moon Tribe, Integral Gathering for people who know that sort of history.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
people who became Burning Man,
Yes,
who
yes.
became that community, like I was in that community of people where it was like, you get a map point, you drive out 3 hours into the middle of the desert, and like we'd have the
Yep.
BLM fly in with helicopters, and bust us up in the early morning hours. And that was the reason why they wanted to find a space to do this, because
Yeah.
these things were happening throughout the desert. But that was my introduction to like real witches and
Hmm.
real shaman, because these
Hmm.
people were really at these things, and these things
Yep.
were really happening.
Yep.
And so that was my entree. And so it was really a more like plant medicine kind of
Hmm.
indigenous Eastern
Yep.
mysticism. That was the soup that I was baked in. A lot of it having to do with ingesting chemicals and shamanism and astral projection and all of these sorts of things.
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
With the music component, and also then Crowley and all of those things that you would typically do. And I think it was from Crowley but also that sort of instinct that I really became involved in like the more sex magic side. So really
Yeah.
trying to key in on that kind of energy and the sacred feminine and all of these things. And so of course, the devil sort of being who he is and recruiting people in the same way that Christ does, like trying to pick off the people for the teams. I really do think we could say those of us who are in Christ, we look and we see that we have a blessed life, but when you're on the other side of it, I would say that that's what people would call a charmed life. And it's like it's charmed. Yes. It's charmed until you're charmed, but it's also like there's a parasite eating it. There's parasites eating at you. The demonic parasites. And so, I had a career in the sex industry as a straight male escort, and became famous and wealthy doing a TV show that was on the network Showtime. And it was in that context that I first discovered Bitcoin. So it was an all cash business, and I was looking for, I have a software background, and here was this software, and it was early on. This is early days, 2011, 2012, when I first got involved, and it was interesting because there was always something about it that it had a draw on me, and I knew that I had always known that like that part of my life was going to end at some point. I didn't know how, and when I say that part, like the gigolo thing and all of that, and I really knew that was the, let's say the zenith, or like the final point of whatever this journey of magic that I had been on. It was like I had reached the thing. Right. And I knew this is going to end. I didn't know how it was going to end. I think during that period, there were several moments where it's only by the grace of God that I'm still alive. My co-stars on that show, across the time of the show, there were six of us. And, the ones who kind of embraced the occult side of what we were doing are not in good shape. I mean, one of them is in prison right now. He killed a woman with his bare hands in the middle of clearly an occult ceremony, involving mushrooms and some other things. And I've spoken publicly and said very plainly that I'm absolutely sure that, because he's a big guy, but also a relatively gentle guy, but probably the other one who was the most involved in the occult on the eastern side, and very much the same things I was involved in. The way that this murder took place, absolutely gruesome. And you would look, and any person would say, well, the only reason that someone would it's like this is the reaction of someone in absolute terror for their life. So it's like, this is a demon obviously appeared in the midst of whatever this was, and that's what happened. And he still hasn't really spoken heavily about it, but he has insinuated that there was some demonic thing that happened. And I experienced that during that time in my life. But I was I would say I was in denial about the idea that Christ was a real thing.
Yeah.
I knew the demons were real. I knew that for a fact. But then I just believed that like the highest thing beyond that was me. And I think that's very much the left-hand path, right? And so
sorry, just to interrupt you right there real quick. Sorry, just because you just made a really good point. That's something that a lot of people have been asking me to talk more about, like that part of my life. And I'm kind of avoiding it right now, not for any reason. Like I'm just less interested in right now, and I don't know if I want the responsibility. There's a responsibility that goes with it. Absolutely. But I think it's important to note that for us that have practiced or done the things that you're referring to as have I on a different level, the reality of the dark side, so that helps you kind of look for the light side. And also if you know how to turn those, I don't want to call them gifts, but tools that you learn from the dark side, and you move them to the other side, rather than being a sorcerer, you're now working on the side of God. You don't take them for granted. You don't use them. Like some people are like, well, if you could do these things, why don't you just use them? I'm like, I'm not ready to use them. Like it gives you the responsibility, puts it on your lap. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just because you were saying something that someone was asking me about yesterday.
It's a good point, and I think it's also something that, and it's going to be helpful for our discussion of Bitcoin, because it's
Yes.
and there's a reason why I'm leading up into all of this, and I'm glad that you brought that up because it's about tools. And so
Yes.
one of the things that, and I'm very careful when I talk about these things.
Yes.
It's something that I've only shared since orthodoxy. Like, I was not sharing this while I was doing these things because,
Yes.
at least I think at least in that regard, I understood that, like, yeah, I would at least feel bad if I had introduced people to these things and was
Yes.
been like,
Yes.
oh, it's good, who were idolizing me, and oh, how did you do that, and oh, this is how I did it.
Yep.
Like, no. And I think that it's appropriate that, Father Turbo said, you're going to be baptized Cyprian. Cyprian of Antioch is your patron. Like, there's no question about
Yeah.
it. But I think,
Yeah.
one of the things, and I've said this to people many, many times, is, and it's important for Orthodox Christians, and I'm so thankful for God bringing Father Turbo into my life as my spiritual father, because it's to help to add the nuance. But it's like, candles and incense and chanting and
Mm.
icons are not inherently Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can call
Yep.
demons with every single one of those things.
Yes.
If my intention and my orientation is to, including icons, because one
Yes.
interesting thing, if you look up, the Church of Saint Cyprian in Romania,
Yep.
witches go in there and peel off
Yep.
pieces of the church to use
Yep.
in spells, in occult spells.
Mhm.
They're peeling pieces of Cyprian's church to use in occult spells, because that is to say that it's like, these things are not inherently holy. They're holy
Yes.
through the intention of the individuals who are at worship.
Nailed
Right?
it.
So it's like,
Yep.
so I think that's an important thing for people to understand, but it works in both ways. So
Mhm.
that is to say,
Mhm.
if you understand that there is a spiritual realm, if you understand what the implements, how these implements are working to manifest these things, then, and Father Turbo really, kind of broke this, and I'm not quoting him exactly, but the sort of gist of when we first started was this idea of like, well, you're playing the same game, but now you're putting on a
Yeah.
different jersey. You're playing for the other
Yes.
team now.
Yes.
This is the same game
Yes.
of spiritual warfare.
Yep.
You're still in
Yep.
playing the game of spiritual warfare,
Yep.
but now you're
That's right.
fighting on behalf of the other side, which even puts a bigger target on your back, because now
Yes.
you're not just their enemy, but you're a turncoat.
Yes.
So you have to be careful. So folks like
Uh-huh.
us have to be even more aware.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because our relationship
Sorry
with
to
those
stop
things
you
is
there.
always there. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to jump in there, just because you got me excited. Because I've talked about this a couple times. If people look at like how we use incense, how we use the chants, how a proper church is built using the different ratios, the icons and all of that is literally using the five senses to bring you and hypnotize you, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, to kind of turn on all those things. So it's like God put all of that programming into us as like a computer, and then you could use it on both sides, both ways. Sorry, I don't mean to jump in there. You got me excited about this, because that's what I've been trying to get across to people, because some people are like, no, I don't want to hear about it, and other people are like, they overly want to hear about it. And I'm like, if you don't understand what you're messing with, it's gonna mess with you, man. It's gonna mess with you. So sorry to interrupt you. I love what you're saying. Keep going.
No, but, and I think it's important on either side as well, right? Because it's these things are the vehicle. There's a great passage. I share it all the time. Saint Nikolai Velimirovich. People could look it up, and it's I believe the title of this little, I don't know whether it was a speech or a homily. Could have been anything, because he wrote so much. But it says the title is "Orthodoxy is a Dramatic Mystery." And the key little passage from out of there, basically what he's saying is that he says, Englishmen comment, and he's really, I think, trying to make a shorthand for Westerners there. Like, and this is a great thing to share with Protestants, is, Englishmen comment that the Bible is seldom read in the home in Russia and in the Slavic countries. And he said, that's true. We more read the Bible in the feast days and the fasts and the icons and the candles and chants and the hymns in the church, in the, you know, day-to-day activities of Orthodox people. Like he said, the Bible has the words, but ours is not a book religion. It's not even a learned religion. Ours is a dramatic mystery.
Yes. I like that. Oh, I like that.
Right? And so he's like, the book is a story about the mystery, and it's the thing that we can sort of all keep coming back to check on, to make sure that everything's still in line, because the Holy Spirit is always consistent.
Yes.
Right? So, but at the same time, we don't experience the Holy Spirit. Yes, the Holy Spirit is the words are inspired by the Holy Spirit, but the Holy Spirit is living, is alive.
Yes.
And there's another from the story of Saint Mary of Egypt, where so for people who don't know, Saint Mary of Egypt, powerful saint. And initially I had thought that Saint Zosimus, who's in her story, would be my patron. But she's definitely the patron of our household. She was out in the desert for decades, and then encountered, you know, one monk, and he encounters her. She's naked, you know, sun dark from the sun, and he gives her his cloak. And in the course of it's a fantastic hagiography, but just incredible. But in the course of their first meeting, their conversation, she starts to quote scripture. But from her story, it sounds like she had never been in church, really. And Zosimus says to her, like, you're quoting scripture. Have you read and studied the scripture? And she says, I've never read it, nor have I had it read to me. But the Spirit which is alive, the Holy Spirit which is alive, makes a man wise. Yeah. And so it's to sort of say, like, listen, you could have everything that's written in the scripture. This is tradition telling us everything that's written in the scripture is available to you without that book. But do you want to spend 25 years as an ascetic alone in the desert to get it? This is just so you don't have to spend 25 years naked in the wilderness. To get it. Okay? This is the shortcut there, because these people had gone through what they went through. They wrote it down, but that's the lives of the saints as well. That's holy tradition as well. It's like everything in holy tradition would be available to you if tradition wasn't there, but you're going to need to go and spend 25 years in the desert to get it. This is just so that you don't have to spend 25 years in the desert. And so it is to say that, like, these tools, and this is how we get to this situation of Bitcoin and sort of my feeling about Bitcoin. And I think, as you, having taken the Bitcoin Mystery School class, you can sort of see where this is going. You know, because I think that this can be a real falling to the right out of correctness, falling off the royal path to the right out of correctness, can be losing the perspective that, like, that tool, like that candle, that incense, that hymn, that metania, you know what I mean? Those prostrations, those are the tools, but they're only leading you toward the Holy Spirit because you're oriented toward the Holy Spirit. Yes. If you were oriented towards Satan, those things would lead you to Satan too. Yep. Well put. They're just opening the pathway for communication. They're the tools opening the pathway for communication. Right? Absolutely. So at the end of the day, it's not about the tools, it's about the orientation. If you're oriented toward Christ, if you want Christ, this is my own story, you know, but that we say, teach me to pray in me. Right? It's that in the mere orientation toward the Holy Spirit. You don't know how to pray? So ask to be taught how to pray. Yes, absolutely. Like, orient yourself toward the Holy Spirit with a true desire in your heart, and the Holy Spirit will teach you how to pray. Yep. And any prayer that you encounter that is from a saint, cherish it, because know where it came from. That's a good point. That's a good point. That's where it came from in the first place, was the Holy Spirit taught them how to pray. That's a good point.
Wow.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's a good way of putting it.
I mean, throughout our hymnography is the stories of holy God, holy mighty, holy immortal, have mercy on us. These things are given from above, and in some cases
Yes.
we know the exact moment when it did.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Holy, 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 Lord of
Yes.
Sabaoth. That's from the angels.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Like these are heard things. These are not like invented things. These are
Uh-huh.
discovered things. These are revealed things. Every single thing that we have is revealed.
Yep.
Every tool
Yep.
that we have, every hymn that we have, every icon that is written, all of that is it's all revealed. It's none of it from us, right? And so but it's because people are oriented toward it.
That's a great point because as a musician myself, any musician out there, and I'm sure other artists as well, but music is my thing. There is a form of of channeling. Now that could be done in a negative way or in a positive way, but once you open up that radio signal, you better be careful. That's why someone's asking me like, "What about meditation or this and that? What's the danger in it?" I'm like, "You're opening up a radio station. You don't know who's going to come in on the other side and whisper in your ear, and if you're not asking for the true monarch to guide you in that direction, you're going to have somebody else that's going to deceive you and start whispering in your ears some really sweet nothings." So what you're saying right there, really, you nailed it, man. I love that. I love that because you put your trajectory, your GPS signal. I'm looking towards God, and you're going to walk in that way. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You just got me excited, man. You got me excited.
It's perfect, and I mean to build on what you just said. I mean, it's that building process. Is that in that. And this now we can go full circle. We went off on this rabbit trail, and now we can go full circle because the thing that I had said was that the only thing that I thought was higher was me. I knew that these other demonic realities were there, but I was like, but I'm still at the top and I'm controlling them. But the interesting thing is, like, when you're doing these practices like meditation and all of this, and this is the big danger of this sort of atheistic view, when you then start to do mindfulness and the psychological and the Petersonian thing, and it's all metaphor and it's all symbol, because you're like, no, my consciousness is at the top. But you know who's telling you your consciousness is at the top? The enemy.
Yep.
Because the enemy is fine if you don't worship him, so long as you're worshiping yourself, because worshiping yourself is the same as worshiping him. Because that was the sin that made him fall.
Yep.
So if you're emulating him, he's happy for you to be doing that. You don't have to be bowing down to him. You bow down to him by worshiping yourself anyway, right? And so this was really where I was at, and I think I was driving myself toward. It's weird to say it, man, but like, because I knew that period was going to end, it was sort of like the die young and leave a beautiful corpse type of situation, where I was like, there's not really anywhere for me to go from here on this particular path that I'm on. There's only just this degradation. I'm just going to degrade. And it was all about like being relevant. That was kind of the catchphrase. Being in that world and being famous and recognized everywhere, and my co-stars and stuff, and we would talk about how to remain relevant. If I do that, I'm not going to be relevant anymore.
Yes.
And just this idea of like, look at that guy, this entertainer who had a run, or like child stars and all of that, and we would look at them and be like, they just kind of fell off, and like, do I really want to be like that? And I think it was driving me towards self-destruction, because I knew that like, this is going to come to an end, and what is it going to be for me? And one of the things that I like had in the back of my mind, and in some ways, I encountered Bitcoin. It rekindled my love for software engineering, which was my profession before that, and what I thought that I would do forever, and something that I truly love to do. But I had completely put it on the back burner to be a TV star. Like, I was actively not doing engineering because it was like, well, that's not my brand. And well, why would I do that when I have the opportunity to do to, I produced feature films and comedy specials, and I, started a music venue, and I was DJing around the place and doing all of the like additional things that I thought like, oh, now the door is open because I'm this TV star. And it was to a certain degree. I had a vodka, company, like all of the typical, the
You
cliched.
did?
Yeah, I did. The
sorry,
cliched things, the cliched. Well, it's good to laugh at it because it's like it's so cliched.
Yeah,
It's
it
like,
solved the time.
of course,
Solved the era.
of
Yeah.
course you did all of the. Of course you did. Of course you did. That's exactly the dumb stuff that you would do in that situation if you were misoriented. And so when I encountered Bitcoin, it was the thing. I remember spending, particularly in 2014, weeks, months. I got my first Bitcoin in 2012, but then I kind of put it to the side. But then in 2014, I was obsessed with the engineering again. And what's interesting, if I look back at that time, God was bringing in it the most crazy ways, was like bringing opportunities into my life to make a turn away from where I was in a very comfortable way, in a way where like now I would look at it and be like, oh, that's only from God because the probability of that happened. I'm going to give you an example. I'll give you an example. Okay.
Yes.
The very first when I got reacquainted with Bitcoin and was like, I'm going to do some development on this. The very first thing I developed, I was in Vegas at the time, and a buddy of mine was getting interested, and it's interesting that this is what it was about for how my life is now and who my current business partners are. But he ran a video game nightclub called Insert Coins.
Okay.
In the Fremont East district. Cool guy, Chris Laporte. Still around in Vegas. He's working in their cannabis industry. He's a real innovative guy. And he had said that that at that point, there was no way to license video game, like gambling machines or whatever. And it was just interesting. I was sitting there, we were talking about it. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And he had some ideas. And just being the engineer that I am, I'm like, well, what's in the guts of these current machines that they have? Because he said, oh, they're super old, they're from the 80s, this technology. And he showed me, and it looked like an old, like, one of the old arcade Pac-Man games that he had, but it was a brand new like slot machine, right? And I was like, wow, that's crazy. I bet I could build that with like a $30 Arduino. I bet I could build something like that. And so I went home and I attached it to Bitcoin and did all these things, and it was super cool. And even had a bill validator where I could put money in and it would go onto the mobile phone and had this mobile gaming on it and everything. And this is like 2014, right?
Ooh,
and I've got it in my house.
Yeah, I've got it in my house, and I'm renting this really like too big house. Crazy. It was what 5 bedrooms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bathrooms. It had a ballroom. I was doing the classic like TV star thing where only like 3 of the rooms were furnished and the other ones had like a
That's why I was laughing.
and it's something like that, right? It's just these are the dumb things, right? Like I look back on this and I'm like, this is all the things that are the dumbest things that of course I was doing. But in the living room I had set up to like build this thing, and I had it all laid out and it was working. And literally the day I was renting this place, and literally the day that it was like that I finished it, my landlord called me and said I had known that they were trying to sell the house in this nice gated community in LA near downtown, Vegas near downtown, and they said, "Oh, we've got a buyer. Can they come look at the house?" I said, "Sure. I'm on my way to the gym, but I'll wait. And then when they get here, they could look at the house, and I'll go to the gym." So that happened, and said hello, and then I went to the gym, and I came back, and the guy who was looking at the house stopped me, and he's like, I'm so sorry, and I don't want you to feel like I'm like looking at your stuff and everything. And he's like, "But is that a bill validator that you have on the table, like that you've got around that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Now, mind you, I had no one in my house.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It was just like there would be no one in my house. I wasn't showing anybody this. I wasn't making it public. Right? It was just this thing. And it was, doing all the accounting on Bitcoin and all of this. And like the one person that's going to show up, and then he's like, "Okay, what are you building?" And I told him, I was like, "Oh, it's this thing, blah, 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 blah. Here, you want to see how it works? Well, here, it's cool. I just finished it yesterday." And he goes, I'm CEO of a company here, big company that builds electronic baccarat tables or whatever. Here is my card. Will you come by my office like this week?
Wow.
And this guy brought me into the office and walked me through his entire facility and was trying to offer me a job.
Wow, man. Okay.
Right?
Wow,
He was trying to
odds?
be like, what? He was like, come and build machines over here for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, we've got another season of the show coming. I'm on this show. I can't really. And he's like, man, don't. I remember him specifically being like, yeah, you really shouldn't stay out of doing the engineering for very long because, like, you know, there's a certain rot that sets in. And I remember this, you know, and it's just one of those that I look back on it now and I'm like, oh, this was really you being reached out to try to pull you. But sure enough, I went and did the next season.
Yeah.
And it was everything fell apart after that. Yeah. Right. And I'm sure that if I look back, there were many, many more things like that of just like, look, this is too specific. The chances of this.
Yep. I'm in there right now.
The day after you finish this, you get called up and like this person is going to come to your house and they happen to be like, this is what they do. You know, these are things where but these are the things that I've come to understand and to learn that it's like, yeah, this is how the Lord works. And it's always in these improbable times, right? And so I sort of knew
that to jump in there real quick.
Go ahead.
So, sorry, because it's interesting because you're pointing out yet another one of those things that's on the other side of the team. On the other side of the team, they call it synchronicity. And it's not that synchronicity doesn't happen, it doesn't occur. It legitimately does happen. But when you look at it from our perspective, we call it God's providence. And it's those little nudges, whether you take them or not. So it's like, I just wanted to point that out for the audience because a lot of the times, especially because I grew up, I'm cradle orthodox. So when I left and I went down the occult path, I started in 1999 and I didn't come back till a couple of years ago. So a lot of the things I learned in the occult world, when I started to see that they're just inversions of things that happens from God's perspective, it all clicked and it all made sense. It was that nobody explained it to me before I left orthodoxy the first time. That, hey man, what you're looking for, the mysteria are here. This is the mystery. You don't have to go too far. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. Just like, I love your story there.
No, it's great, but I want to build on that because it's important. Like, there is a difference between the way that the two teams do their nudges. This is what I've come to, right? Is that like, so there was another example of this that happened. Like, you know, I was baptized here in Saipan. Father Turbo and a reader from their church, Nick, who's my godfather, came and baptized me. But awesome. The crazy story happens like 30 days later. Not even. Right? I think they came on like the 10th of June and then like on July 4th. And I remember it was July 4th because we were out at the beach for July 4th. And I've told this story many times. Like an Orthodox priest like just appears. Russian Orthodox priest just like appears on the island.
Wow.
You know, and it just so like, and it was crazy because we're at July 4th with all of our friends of ours who had come to like the liturgies and the services that Father Turbo did and participated in my baptism. And then my wife and I were married in the church. She's Russian Orthodox. My children were already Orthodox, right? So they were they're cradled. They were baptized. And she didn't, it's weird. Like she didn't actively push me towards Orthodoxy. It just like happened. But I'm sure it's because, you know, I was around Orthodox people. So it's just something that's going to happen. But I've told the story. I got up from the table. It's 4th of July. It's getting towards the evening. My little daughter said, she wanted to go back to the water. I stood up at the table as like the guys that had been involved in that whole thing, my wife. I get up, I turn around, I take my daughter, we go into the water. I turn around to look, and in a full black cassock with a big pectoral, silver pectoral cross, is sitting a priest in the chair that I just left.
That's awesome. Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'm like within 40 days of baptism.
Wow.
And my wife is crying.
40. Wow.
Yeah, and my wife is crying, and these guys' mouths are like they're just they're in shock. All of them.
Wow.
Now two of them are now Orthodox, right?
Glory to
And
God. That's awesome.
yeah, glory to God. And they're in Hawaii, and their parish is the myrrh bearing icon, the Hawaiian Iveron icon, right?
Okay.
So, but I immediately, right? I grab my daughter. I come back. I'm like, "Are you what is this? Are you a priest?" It's like, "Yeah." I said, "You're Orthodox priest." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, Father bless," and sat down and sort of told him the story. And he was like, "Yeah, this is my first time here. I'm a mission priest. I have I think it's called a matokian, which is something like it's an old thing that the church had. It's like an embassy almost in Taiwan. Answered directly to the patriarch. Father Kirill is his name, Father Kirill Scarble, and he said, this is my first time coming here, and this is the first place I came because somebody told me that I could find Russian people here. I just got here. This is the first place that I came, and you're the first people that I've talked to. And then we told him the whole story. And I was like, there's the probability of this thing. And the guys with us were like, the chances here.
Yeah.
And he very matter-of-factly, he didn't miss a beat. He said, that's how you know that it's the true Church of Christ. Because the probabilities go out the window when he's involved.
Yes,
we don't need to talk about probabilities when he's involved. It goes out the window.
Yep.
But one of the interesting things, and this is yet another example, is that when the nudges happen, and it's the Holy Spirit in action, it will be people, physical people, who will show up in the most improbable ways, who probably shouldn't be there.
Yes.
And who will do something engaging with you. It will be incarnate. It will be manifest. Yes. It will be in the flesh. So when it's the enemy, it will be ideas. It'll be imagination and connections that you will make.
Yes.
That will be inside your own head of connections that you're making to things. It'll be completely self-referential. There will be nothing from the outside. It'll be just in your head that, I had never made that connection before. That's the enemy doing the nudge.
You're killing me because, and I don't know if I'm going to leave this in or put it into like the after for people that should know, because I'm trying to keep it on the. It's weird because I just had these experiences recently with Father Turbo, and our connection is Father Turbo is our spiritual father, and he's actually the first one that kind of like Saint Paisio slapped me upside the head when he was on my show. Like I was very quiet, I didn't say a lot, but he pushed this button about my grandfather, and like I think I almost like teared up on camera, and like he gave me that smack upside the head, and he has been ever since then, right? In very, very, very great and loving way. He's awesome. And I was having this moment the last couple of weeks. Just some bizarre things are happening, like just bizarre, and I'm just like freaking on the phone. It's like, Father, I don't know if this is prelist. I don't know if what this is, but this can't be happening. This is crazy. Even talking with you, and he's just like, just calm down, relax. He goes, you question yourself. That's all that matters. Don't worry. Just keep one step forward. Let's keep going with this. And then he starts dropping more things on my lap, including you. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. He's weird. And I'm like, I have been putting off contacting him for like, seriously, man, about a year. Right. And it's like, I knew I could, and I'm just not ready. I'm just not ready. And the reason why is because I was afraid Father Turbo was going to give me his blessing, and I don't want the responsibility. And then the next step is you. So anyways, sorry, I don't know if I'm going to cut this out but you know what I mean? It was so weird. It was so weird. Even how I joined Bitcoin's mystery school is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because I reached out to you before that. And then Manny, my nephew, we were both like sitting here. We were watching some of your stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I think we just got to make a move on this thing. And then he just like looked up at me with this like look in his eyes. I'm like, what happened? He's like, I just wanted to bring that up to you because this might be the last one. I didn't know it was going to be the last one. I'm like, really? We got to do it. Anyways, sorry. I know it's not the same at all because your story is crazy. No, it is. But in if you know what's going on in my life right now, dude, and I'll tell you later, you'll be like, okay, that's weird, man. That's weird.
Well, and I think that it's all personalized for us, right? Yes. So I think the greater, and again, like this is I'm such a disagreeable person, and it takes so much for me with the things that I've seen, But
Yeah, me too.
it's the Johannine Pentecost, right? Out of John, when we're talking about doubting Thomas. And I think the interesting thing, when that story has come up, and I knew the story, right? Like I was raised Episcopal. My dad's family was Episcopal, and my mom's family was Catholic, but not very, religious in any way. And that story, the whole doubting Thomas thing, and we call him doubting Thomas. But the truth of the matter is that when Thomas demanded that level of proof, he was like, I want to touch the wounds, you know what I mean? I need to stick my hands in there and everything. It's important that Christ didn't say no.
True.
He said, "Oh, is that what you need?
True.
That's what you need? Okay." But blessed are those that don't need it.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's varying levels of proof that was required as we see that in that chapter in John, like varying degrees of proof before people would believe. And so, but the important thing about Thomas is he went farther. He went to China. He converted people in India. When the Portuguese got to India, they were like, the people in India were like, "Oh, the cross thing. Yeah, we got some people. We got some people that do that," and they're like, "What? What are you talking about?" Yeah. And it's like I don't know whether they're in Malabar or something like that, but they're the sect there, and they have the Syriac rite. Like they came there, and it's like they were doing the Syriac rite, and they were like, "What? What is this?" And it's like they're called Thomas Christians. Like these are the people. He went to India, then he went to China, and it's like, oh, so the guy who required the most proof then went the furthest.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the trade-off, right? Is that it's like, well, the reason that you have to be given the crazy one.
I see. Oh, wow.
Is because now you got to go further.
Oh, dude, you're so right. Oh, wow. Dude, you just blew my mind.
Yeah, that's what that story's about.
I didn't look at it that way.
That's what's happening there. Yeah. Well, the thing is that you can't, and again, this is why a book religion doesn't work, right? Because if you don't, because Thomas going to India is not in the book. It's only in holy tradition.
Yep.
If you only have the book, it doesn't make sense.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true.
If you only have the book, you don't know you only know the setup. You don't know the punchline.
Wow,
and so you miss the lesson.
That makes so much sense. The way you put that, the doubting Thomas needed that, required that, but because of it, he went the extra step further and really, it's almost like he wanted to repay the trust and say, "You trusted me to do this, to put my hands in there. I'm going to do this." I'm just thinking out loud. That's awesome, dude. I never thought about it that way. Wow. Okay. Keep going, man. This is great.
Well, to whom much is given, much will be asked, or much will be demanded.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yep.
Right? So it's like, okay, if you're doing this in good faith, because if you tell me, listen, if I have this, I will believe it 100%. Because that's all Christ is asking for. Yeah. He's like, what do you need to just fully believe? What do I need to show you?
I'm just throwing this out there. Do you view our participation, and Father Turbo's as well, because we've talked about it a little bit off air, that participating in the dark arts, do you view it that way, that we needed that confirmation? Because honestly, as you said it, that's the first thing that clicked in my mind, and you made it make sense to me. And I was like, maybe that's not what he means. So I just wanted to clarify. So you do. Because as soon as you said it, that's the first time, like, that's why I have these like crazy ambitions. That makes so much sense, man. Wow. This is the second time in like 3 days you've done this to me during Bitcoin Mystery School.
The funny thing about it is that like it's all you have to do is just tell the story as it happened.
Yeah.
Because the story itself is and it's not even like the story, but it's just you just like display the pattern and you just fill in the blanks. You know, it's like here we have this big mosaic, and it's like, oh, it's such a beautiful mosaic, but like, what's actually happening inside of it? And maybe you see this little corner, it's like the jigsaw puzzle. And you're like, oh, there's a little dog up here, and like, oh, there's a sun over here, but you don't see the connection between the dog and the sun because you haven't filled in the other pieces of the picture. But then when you see the whole picture, you're like, oh, there's a big thing. There's a gigantic thing happening here, which is why we need holy tradition.
Agreed.
Like, it's why we need the lives of the saints. It's why we need the holy elders. It's pushing us and guiding us and orienting us and showing us back to the saints, because like that's the only way that we get the whole picture, because the Holy Spirit is alive.
Yeah.
And constantly revealing himself to us.
Absolutely.
You know, like constantly, right? So why would we only want to be stuck with the picture of the Holy Spirit from 2,000 years ago that's contained within these pages, and not the lived experience of millions of people, which is the church throughout, you know, the last 2,000 years? No, of course you want the whole thing, because then you get the whole picture of what it is we're talking about, right? But I think more so for me now is the realization, because I know it's real, like a real sensitivity to the danger of, as you've said multiple times here, like playing with these things, and the actual understanding of what constitutes playing with these things.
Yes, the price.
Well, no, I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand what they're playing with when they do, like, people don't understand when you get dressed up. When you wear a costume to do a thing.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. Yep.
Like, if you're going to have a brand, people don't know that a brand is a spell.
Yep, it's magic. Yep, absolutely.
Right? It's magic.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to and marketing
Absolutely.
and all of these things, and it's like, oh, I'm going to make my personal brand, and because they haven't, they're in a materialist view, and it's academic, and they're like, oh, this is just aesthetically pleasing, but they don't understand aesthetics is part of magic. A huge part of magic, actually.
Yep, absolutely.
Like
absolutely.
A huge, well,
even like bringing into account
part
the
of our
fact
liturgical. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to keep going down that path, because even spelling, the word spelling, it's constantly used this way. Like when you're casting a spell with words, depending on which way you move, as well as the fact that we're moving into an attention economy. And if you really look at it, what does the great deceiver want? He wants your attention, because the more he has your attention, if he makes you bored, you feel bored, then your attention is in his hands, and he can move and steer you towards any direction he wants. And therefore he's going to entice you without even knowing it subtly to wear those costumes, to use those words of spelling, and to kind of cast these dark magic spells all over the place. You definitely 100%. You're right. That is very, very much the case.
Well, and I mean, people's, avatars.
Yes, avatars. That's right.
All of these things that it's like, oh, you have chosen an avatar that represents a thing, and then you're going to put words behind that avatar. Oh, I'm just trolling. No, dude, you're putting words behind an avatar. This is a spell.
Yes.
The ancients would understand this as nothing but magic that you're doing right now. And it's like, you are opening a portal to something, and you don't even know what your avatar represents.
Exactly. It's a sigil at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're not consciously doing this, which is even more dangerous.
Exactly.
It's way more dangerous for you to not be conscious. Like, the demons would rather that you thought it was fun. You're still giving them rights.
Absolutely. It's a contract.
And I think that that's like, so I've become a lot more sensitive to that. And I also know what the risks are. I also know that there's things that I can't go back. It's again, one, I've got a target on my back, but two, like, I know what the real cost is now, because I actually know that Christ is real.
Yep. That's it.
Right? I actually know that it's real on both sides. I understand what the spiritual warfare is. It's really real. And so I think that this really leads to the other nudge that I had in my life, sort of when things ended with that
Mm-hmm.
gigolo lifestyle, and I was still trying to kind of carry it on and whatever, but I met my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it was one of those situations where there was something very different. She is not like any of the women that I was involved with in terms of her sort of personality, her outlook, any of the
Mm-hmm.
any of the things about her. So I mean, I guess one could say, like, for the person that I was at the time, she was not my type. But my
I see.
type at the time was incredibly toxic and demonic, but I was being attracted to that. But the one
Yep.
difference was, and maybe because of this, and it's not that I'd even recognized, oh, well, yes, she's Russian, but I hadn't recognized, like, oh, she's Orthodox, these things. But, I met my wife, and the one thing that the feeling that I had was like, if I'm going to have children, it's going to be with this woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was the thing. And so it really came down to a decision for me at that time that it was like, well, this is why I say that my wife saved my life, and then my daughter coming along, like, even more so. But it was really like a very big feeling that I had that if I'm not going to be with this woman and sort of give up the lifestyle that I have, basically my life as this character that I was being, this costume that I was wearing and this mask that I was wearing, that had this involvement in the occult and all of this, that life was going to end. And the question was, does that mean
Mm-hmm.
the end of my life completely?
Right.
Or does it mean the end of the old man, if you will? So it's kind of a
Yep.
path in that way. And
Mm-hmm.
of course that the instinct toward life being like, if I'm going to have children, if I'm going to have a family, it's going to be with this woman, right? So the instinct toward that thing, even though I couldn't really articulate it. And so I did. I pursued that path, and we decided to be together and have kids together, and we talked about that from the beginning, and that this is the thing that we're going to do, and that necessarily meant that I couldn't live the life that I was, and so then it was okay. Well, back to software, and what's
Mm-hmm.
the software that's got that's really got my mind and my heart, and it was Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and it was in building. And then, thinking more, that got me thinking about, the things about libertarianism and these sorts of things. And I started doing some rants online. And again, reached out to by who became, still is one of my business partners to this day in Counter Markets. But our editor, Jeff Paul, reached out to me, and he was running a media outlet at the time that was very, very popular in libertarian circles. And he said, hey, you want to do this podcast? And I said, I don't really want to do a podcast, but I'll do like a multi-camera show. Nobody was really doing that at the time. And I said, I'll
Right.
do the multi-camera live online show. Nobody was doing that. Nobody.
Yep. True. True.
And so we did, and with my co-host. But Bitcoin, I said I want it to be about libertarianism, and I want it to be about Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the things that I was doing. Started a company off of that, and it was like, the deeper I got, and in my book, Render Unto Caesar, it's the opening words that in the intro is that, my involvement with Bitcoin has brought me closer to God. And it's the truth that, like, the deeper
Yep.
and more involved in Bitcoin that I've gotten,
Mm-hmm.
the fruits of that has been, as I look at it, it has drawn me closer to Christ. And I think a lot of people would be like, that seems wrong. Because
No, it
of
makes so much sense.
what they understand about Bitcoin, though. They're like, wait, you mean
Yeah.
the thing
Yes.
that you, like, buy it and then people get rich,
Mm-hmm.
and those are a bunch of douchebags? That doesn't seem like that would. And I think that it has been because of the fact that it has, when I have pursued this tool, and I don't know if it's about Bitcoin or if it's about me and my orientation, right? At the end of the day, again, like, this is where we're talking about the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could say the same thing, like, oh, the further I've got into making candles, oh, the further I've gotten
Yep.
into carpentry or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been that I've moved, and that for whatever reason, and I know the reason, it's because it's been these nudges from the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
that, like, all of the opportunities have come up for me, to very strong opportunities for me to play into avarice, or these other things in the course of, people saying to me, oh, well, why don't you do an ICO? Why don't you do NFTs? You could just build all of these things in your sleep and you've got an audience. They'll buy them all. And me being like, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. No, that's wrong.
Yep.
And instead pursuing the way that I knew was right. And it's like, I say this to my wife all the time, is that just God has kept us good.
Yes.
It's been a very much lilies of the field type of situation where give us our daily bread. Like, we've been kept very comfortable in that regard. And not only that, I found myself in Saipan because of Bitcoin, right? That it was when everything happened in 2020 and we were looking for a place to go because we were in Southern California. And I was like, there's no way. I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
I told my wife, this is not going to be 2 weeks.
Yep.
We're in a situation right now where my extended family doesn't even want to be around my kids because they're scared.
Yep.
We can't go to the park. The beaches are closed. They can't go and hang out with their little play groups and everything. We got to go somewhere where this is not the case. And then it was like, in looking where could we even go? Here there just happens to be this crypto frontier thing, this Bitcoin guy. And again, people that I knew, where someone reaches out to me before it all starts in November 2019, right? A friend that I knew because of Bitcoin, because of an Acapulco, who had then become a friend, reaches out to me and goes, hey, did you hear Mark Edge, where I had gone to New Hampshire to found our Bitcoin business there, Cointext, and be part of the Free State Project, and was in with the crypto folks there. And it was like Mark Edge, who's from Free Talk Live, who's a really OG Bitcoiner. He's the one who introduced Roger Ver to Bitcoin, right? And a buddy of mine goes, hey, did you hear that? And I used to host that show with them when I was there. I would drive into Keene and host the show. Did you hear that Mark Edge went to Saipan? I said, where? And this is November 2019. So this is just mere couple of months before. And then I reached out to Mark and I was like, where is this? What are you doing? And he's like, yeah, it's kind of like a crypto intentional community. We're trying to kind of get things going here. And it's this thing. You should look into it. The taxes are good and all of this. And I said to my wife, even at that time, I was like, hey, would you ever want to go? I showed her pictures. Would you ever want to go here and live here? It's kind of interesting. She's like, yeah, maybe we could visit towards the end of the year and see. It looks kind of cool. I love tropical islands, blah, blah, blah. So we were already set up. And then when the thing happened and we were looking around, it was just obvious. I reached out to the guy here and he's like, all the stores the shelves are stocked. We don't have lockdown here. We're not doing any of that. But pay attention, because the governor's talking about shutting off, in and out from the Commonwealth by air. But everything inside we're going to be good. We're going to be cool. But they're doing that because we don't have the medical resources and they're scared and all of this. But there's no COVID here. And there was no COVID here, by the way. Like during that whole time, right? It just didn't even exist. It wasn't a thing. And so, but my ability to even come here and it was during that period when we were in California before coming here that I was doing yard work. I was working at Bitcoin.com as an executive, right? So again, Bitcoin, and that was allowing us to be wherever, we were. And I think it was because Christopher Hitchens, I saw a video of him and it stood out to me. It was not when he was sick. It was before that. He was debating somebody about Islam. And he said that he had been reading Darmaid McCullough's History of Christianity. I think it's called Christianity, the First 3,000 Years. And and he said he was like, it's profound. It's fascinating. It's a masterpiece. And I was like, wait a minute. This is the new atheist? Christopher Hitchens talking about 3,000 years. What is this book? And so I got it on audiobook, and then every weekend when I would do yard work there in California at our house, I would listen for hours to this, and it's long, it's huge, right?
Okay.
And and it moved me, especially the pieces about the early church, things I didn't know, and I was like, oh, this is something different. Then I realized, oh, I've never even read a gospel the whole way through.
Okay. Yeah.
And as a story, I knew the verses and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, I don't even know this story really," because it was, and then I encountered this Pentecostal minister from like the 70s on YouTube, Derek Prince, and he had said something in one of the, because I'm searching, right? Now I'm searching.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, what is this thing? And he said, Jesus's ministry was casting out demons and healing the sick. He said that's what it was. That's why people. He said yes, people were around, and then he would teach them. But the reason they came to him was because he was casting out demons and healing the sick. And he also talked a lot about fasting. And it was the first time that I had really encountered this idea that Christians, like, that fasting was a real big Christian thing. I had never really encountered this. And so
for sure. Yeah.
I started reading the Gospels, and then I was like, oh, this guy is not who I thought.
Right.
And two, there's some other things going on here that I'm very interested in. Right. And it was my occult background in that allowed me to be like, no, this is real. This is real. This is written by people who experience this, and what's happening here is real. And all of this really happened, and there's something more going on here. Okay.
Yes.
And then right before COVID, I mean, we're talking February 2020, then I started fasting.
Yeah.
And I did a 3-day fast, and then I was like, I'm going to do a 7-day fast. And I did a 7-day fast, like end of February. And then the COVID stuff hit. And so it was almost like I was just being set up. You know? And so then then I started praying. And then I started praying in the mornings. And in the evenings, right? And it was very much a teach me to pray in me. I didn't know what I was doing. Right. But I had enough background in terms of getting myself into the state.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That I was like, okay, I know enough of the form that I know how to get myself into the state to do this thing, to start talking to this Holy Spirit. Right. The signal's not going to be great, but I can get the initial thing. And I had faith that it would like work itself out because the Spirit is real. And then the COVID thing happened. We found ourselves here. We also like hyper providentially found ourselves with like the first day that we basically popped onto the island with a house on the beach, which nobody lives on the beach here, but of course we didn't know that.
Right.
And so it was morning and evening walks on the beach down to a spot where I would then pray. And it was in one of those very early on that, and I was talking to a lot of people and working on Bitcoin, and, you know, work was coming in related to Bitcoin, and we were able to survive. We just came with the clothes on our back, really, you know what I mean? And whatever savings we had. And so it was a leap of faith in that way. But, it was actually like one morning right after prayer that it just hit me. And at this time I'm starting to pray to Christ. You know what I mean? I'm not just praying to God and the Holy Spirit. Like I'm praying to Christ at this time. And it just hit me like a bolt of lightning. You're going to do this class. It's going to be called Bitcoin Mystery School. It's going to be 3 days. There's going to be 20 people in class. This is exactly what you're going to teach. It was all that. Like, go put it up online. Go do that. And I was like, what? I remember like stopping, looking out over the ocean and being like, what? And out loud saying, what am I supposed to do? It was a really profound moment when I was like, oh, this is not coming from me. Because it was like apropos of nothing. I hadn't been thinking about that or nothing. And it was just like, wham, this is what you're going to do. So I went, put up a site, same site that's still there to this day, and kind of announced it. And it was in that I was reached out to by someone who I had talked to previously, who had mentioned that he was Orthodox, that he was in a parish, and he had this priest who was a Serbian Orthodox priest who used to be a skinhead, who was all tattooed from head to toe. And I remember when I had talked with him about this, that he had been like, if you ever feel like you want to talk to a priest, he would talk to you. And I was like, yeah, at the time I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. So this is maybe a couple months later, this guy reaches out to me and he says, oh, I see you're doing this Bitcoin Mystery School thing. We have a brotherhood, a men's group in our parish. And we've been talking a lot about the need that this is one of the skills that we feel like we need to have for what's coming. I mean, they were really like fighting against the whole this is late 2020, December 2020. So the COVID weirdness is at its height. This is the Thanksgiving where people couldn't go be with their family. This is after the Thanksgiving and before the Christmas, right? And so it's at its height of absurdity at that point. And they said, "Would you do a private class for us?" And I said, "Oh yeah, sure. You guys can be my guinea pigs. So you can be my first class." And I think it was 10 or 11 people. I said, "I'll cut you a massive discount on it." Right? So I'll do like a third of the cost. You'll be my guinea pigs. I'll work through the curriculum and everything with you guys. And so I'm sitting there and everybody's coming on, at the beginning of class as you've experienced. And then I see Father Turbo Qualls, the name pop up, and I go, what an interesting Father Turbo. This guy's going to be so interesting. And now remember, they had said Serbian Orthodox priest, former skinhead, and tattoo artist, tattooed from head to toe. And the video comes on, and it's a black dude. And I was like, wait a minute. Okay. And I knew at that moment, like, this is going to be a whole other thing, right? Yeah. And so we went through the curriculum, and it was great. Yeah. And after the first day, as you would expect in this situation, I was like, okay, who is this guy? Now I gotta see. So I was looking. There was not much on YouTube of Father Turbo, not like it is now, right? Yep. There was very little at that time, but there was a couple of things, and I was just blown away by just the profound simplicity of. I'll tell you the exact thing that blew me away, where I was like, okay, I have to have spiritual mentorship from this guy. There's a video of him. He's meeting with a parish in South Carolina, an Orthodox parish. And this is in a period where Father Turbo, I think he was more heavily involved in I think it was called Brotherhood of St. Moses the Black. And it was a lot about like racial reconciliation and some of these things. And I don't know where that whole direction has gone, but I know they brought him to South Carolina, and it feels like it was sort of in that energy and vibe. And I remember that it was something like this discussion, which you can't see the whole audience, but I think probably most of the audience was white, I think. I'm pretty sure. And because the question that they were asking was about how can we get more, the vibe was like, how can we get a more racially diverse parish? Right. And so there was one question that was asked, and they were like, how do we do outreach to the African American community, like in our area? How do we get them more like to be able to engage with us in our Orthodox church? And I don't know whether they were Greek or Russian or Orthodox or whatever, but if they were Russian, they were ROCOR. And this is where I was like, immediately I was just like, oh, like dumbstruck. His answer to he looked right at this person and he said, "You can't." And then he said, I know the interview you're talking about. And then he said, "You can't." Yeah. And you got to step outside of that whole idea. If it's going to happen, it's going to be Christ that does it.
That's right.
And I was like, oh, yeah, wow. And so then I asked it. So that was it for me. I was like, this guy, I knew. And again, it was like my understanding of of spiritual reality. The fact that he said everything to me that like, oh yes, this man understands how everything works. Right?
I can relate to this. I can relate to this Father Turbo story identically. Sorry to jump in there because it's like I had a similar moment. Because like I said, I was raised Greek Orthodox, right? So then I started to get curious again. If you can call it ortho curious, I became ortho curious because of a bunch of people. And I'm like, what is going on here? You know what I'm saying? Like, are we talking about the same Orthodox I grew up with? You know, like this is like 2014. It was Jay Dyer and this other guy named James Perloff. And they're talking about they converted to Orthodoxy. And I was like listening to them about conspiracy stuff, whatever. And then I'm like, Eastern Orthodox, like Eastern Orthodox, like Greek, Russians, Serbians. It didn't make sense. And then things happened. 2020 came along. I have a very similar story to yours in the sense that like I dipped right away. I knew what was going on right from the kick. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. So Mexico was our stop. I'm Canadian. If I was American, I'd have different options.
Right.
Thought I'd throw that in there. And then a couple of years pass, and more people are talking about online orthodoxy. I'm like, okay. And then a lot of my questions were being answered slowly. And but not quickly, but just slowly. So then Buck Johnson has this black tattoo artist, punk rock guy on there, and my background's punk rock. So like a lot of the people I've interviewed are like the punks to Orthodox pipeline. Like I spent a lot of time on my interviews on that subject. So they're talking, and I have it playing in the background, and all of a sudden he starts talking about the Cro-Mags. I'm like, what? What? Who? This guy, this priest is talking about the Cro-Mags? And that took me for a loop, because we weren't talking about like generic punk. We're talking about for reals, right? And then they're talking about oi bands, and they're talking about, I'm like, what is happening here? This is crazy. So now all of a sudden, I'm not interested in like the online Orthodox. I'm like, I'm interested in this person. Who is this guy? And then I started checking out, and then something was like, okay, just get him on your show. At that point, I wasn't even talking about Orthodoxy at all. Actually, sorry, a little bit of a side note. I wasn't going full throttle with my podcast, which I started this whole thing like in 2009. Long story. It had a lot to do with like the stuff we were talking about earlier, Hermeticism and all that stuff. But just something inside me, like I was ahead of the game on some stuff. I don't mean to say it that way, but like I could have easily made a good run of the online Orthodox, the online personality thing early in the game. Because even when the COVID stuff hit, everyone was like, dude, you should be talking about this stuff because you've always been talking about this. But something inside me just held back. Then people really started getting into like spirituality. And I'm like, I can help out here because you guys are on the wrong path. In my head, I'm like, oh, you guys don't know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing, dude. You don't know what you're talking about. But something held me back, and I just wasn't doing it. I was procrastinating. So then something whispers in my head, have this guy on. And, forgive me, Father, if you're watching this, you were this guy to me at that point. I was starting to be curious about Orthodoxy. Yes. I was starting to ask a lot of questions. Yes. So then I have Father Turbo on. And I just kind of set him up. And then I just let him go. And I think he starts off, and I'm totally like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but we have it as an intro for the episode I did with him. He says something like rebellion, this and that, it's talking about punk rock, but it's all about Christ.
Yeah.
And like, he just looks in the camera and he goes, it starts with Christ. And I was like, whoa, we're talking about punk rock. And this guy's starting off with, at that point, he was still this guy. And the whole time I barely talked, and a lot of the comments I've gotten was like, I've never seen anyone just set someone up and leave them alone. I'm like, how do you interrupt your Father Turbo? And like, every time he just kept punching me in the spiritual gut. You know what I mean? In the most amazing way. And then at the end, he goes to that moment of mine with my grandfather whispering this prayer. And then he looks at me and he says, I've told this story 100 times, but I'm telling you now because like, please, you got me excited about Father Turbo. So I'm talking about my grandfather, who was like probably the first person that really tried to guide me on the path of Orthodoxy. And he was a big thing in my life. And he gave me this Bible. And when I left from Canada to come here, my mom gave me this Bible, or my daughter, she gave her this Bible. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute, whatever, right? It's cute. It's a Bible, whatever. But it's like the one that your grandfather gave. He said, okay. So I had that with me. And then I started telling Father Turbo about this whisper. My grandfather would always do this whisper. And it occurred to me only that year, the year that I interviewed, last year where I interviewed Father Turbo, that he was whispering the Jesus prayer. I just occurred to me that I didn't realize that's what I think that's what he was doing. And then Father Turbo goes, that's why you're here, right? But he said it like very Father Turbo stern. And I was like, yeah. And blah, 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 blah. And he's like, no. That's why you're here, right? And then in my head, it all connected, and I just started tearing up. I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, when we're done this, and he stopped the interview, and he's talking just to me. And he's like, when you're done this, light a candle for your grandfather. Like the way he said it to me. And I know it's not the same as your story, but to me, that was the game changer. That was the game changer. And that's when I was like obsessed with, what is this faith? Who is this person?
Yes.
And he's like, take my number down. You're going to have, and he said this to me after, he's like, take my number down. You're going to have a lot of questions and a lot of things are going to happen. And he's like, it's not going to get easier for you. Cause like I'm cradle, right? So the honeymoon stage is going to go right away. I'm like, what's he talking about? It's like, it's going to, lo and behold, weeks later, my life comes crashing down, completely crashing down. So then fast forward to this year. So Father Turbo, if you ever watch this, I love you. But anytime I've had a conversation with you, it's crushed me, but it's always put me back together again. So then I have this moment where I have my very first confession, like my very first legitimate, real confession. And we're done. And he's like, it's going to get hard. I was like, what's he talking about again? Like, how much harder can it get? 3 days after that, my world completely falls apart. It's like, I was like, what's he doing to me? But going back to your story of like people showing up, things happening, instead of it being synchronicity, it's God's providence. Even this conversation we're having, the whole time you're talking, I'm having these moments. Like, I'm just going to say that out, like flat out. And then all of a sudden I'm talking to him and he's like, just laughing at me almost, kind of like, yeah, dude, everyone's freaking out right now. And a few of you guys are freaking out. I'm probably going to clip this out, so I'll just say it to you. Sure. He was, Cyprian is freaking out about something. This is like a couple days ago.
Of course.
And then you're tripping out, and I'm listening to your message because I sent him a message, and you're tripping out. He's like, something's happening. It's really important. I don't know what it is, like that kind of thing. And I'm like, what are you doing to me? What's going on? And then after he's like, you need to contact Cyprian. I'm going to just leave it at that. And I was like, what is going on here? What is going on here? So then I'm like, I'm in Bitcoin Mystery School. I signed up for it. He's like, It's like kind of like he knew. So I'm sitting there doing Bitcoin Mystery School, and I knew it was going to be great. But then I didn't exactly know where you were going to take it. So we're sitting down, and the first day I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is amazing. This is going to be great. I know what he's going to talk about tomorrow. Like, such a cocky mano. And I'm not normally like that. Like, especially lately, I've tried to humble myself. I really have. But I'm like, oh, I love where he's going to take it. He's going to take it here. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Then you start going down the render onto Caesar stuff. And then you start talking about the coin. Dude, you took me apart. And then it all started to make sense to me. Like, you took me apart the same way Father Turbo did, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Glory to God.
What is happening to me? So honestly, and everything I had written on my sheet that I needed to pull off what I'm trying to pull off, you answered. But not like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I still don't know, but I'm like, he knows. I don't need to know. Just talk to him.
That's it.
And I'm like, I don't need to know. I don't need to know. So I look at my nephew. He's the techie, and he's like, "Do you realize what just happened here?" I'm like, "I know what's because you explained to him Bitcoin." So his mind was blown for the same reasons on a different. I was crazy. Sorry, I went off there on a tangent, but that tangent is just for me and you. I'm clipping this out.
No, don't clip it. And the reason not to clip it is because, like, this is, if the discussion is, let's draw the line from Bitcoin, but I think what it ultimately is, again, is it's like, it's not Bitcoin, it's the orientation, right? And that it's like, I feel like it could have been anything, but it's just, Bitcoin has shown forth because it's been something where, one, it's a practice, right? It's praxis. And the other thing is that it is a tool that is directly connected to the spiritual, and we talk about that, right? And it also comes, it also requires you to bear a cross and to actively fight the passions. The main passion being avarice, right? So that's the main passion that's involved with this. It's very easy to fall into avarice, but every person that I've watched, and pride, to a certain degree, vainglory, because it also offers that up. Right, and anger for certain people if you're opposing it on the other side. Like, it's just got a lot of things. But if we're gonna draw the line, what's interesting is that class. After that, I asked Father Turbo. I asked him at the end of that first class. I said, I've been praying. Would you be interested in talking to me about helping me with my prayers so that I could actually, like, get the most out of it? Right, like, that's what I understood and that was the only way that I was approaching it. And he was very gentle with me, but at the same time, like, the model that he showed me for what Orthodox evangelism is, because it really is about the praxis. It really is about the praxis.
Yes.
Right? That it's about,
Yes.
look, there's this set of things that you need to do, but let's make sure that you can do them right. And I really related it to, and I often use the analogy of, because for me, I've been in the gym for more than 25 years now, almost every day, right? Like I used to call it, in my atheist days, I called the gym my church.
Me
Because
too.
it was, you know what I mean? Because it was the place where, like, and it's part of understanding praxis and getting yourself into the zone and getting into that connection and opening up the pathway, and that it has to do with physical exertion and suffering and these types of things, right? And like understanding to push yourself past certain all of the lessons are very good in there. But the evangelism being, okay, this is going to be about the praxis.
Yes.
And like you're going to need tools and background and understanding, and we're going to walk through, and when you reach a point where you're like, okay, I'm ready for it's very Mr. Miyagi in that way, right? It's like, maybe you don't know what this is. It's like, paint the fence, sand, wax on, wax off, that type of situation. And and there just came a certain point. I remember there was a call that he and I had, and I was like, I've got something to tell you, and he was like, I've got something to tell you. You go first. No, you go first. And I was like, he was like, this. What you're talking, you really need to be in the church, man. And I was like, that's what I needed to tell you.
That's beautiful.
I have to be in the church. That's what I had to tell you today. And it was the same day. But I think that's what's interesting about it is Bitcoin Mystery School, and then the group of people, because part of it is it's not just the class, it's been this group, this Telegram group.
Yes.
And people have said it has changed their lives, but the sheer number of people that have converted to it's basically an Orthodox group at this point.
Yep. I noticed that. I was like, what's going on in here?
almost everyone is Orthodox, and many of them converted after taking the class.
It's beautiful.
Many of them. But at the same time, there's been no, in my opinion, proselytizing. But the thing is that if no proselytizing, no trying to convert anybody. But if somebody asks a question of me, I'm going to give you the full answer.
Bang.
And my full answer is not going to be a materialist answer because I don't live that way.
That's right. Yep. Praxis is key. I think that like sorry to interrupt you there. I'm so happy you're saying that, because sometimes I'm getting these questions or like these behind the scenes, because when you start doing these podcast things behind the scenes, people try to pull you into their weird online Orthodox camps, and there's more than a few. And I've made it very clear. I have a church father. I'm going to him to get permission on things, and I'm doing this way. And honestly, I suck at this whole entire thing. And I love that you talk about praying to learn how to pray, because that's what I've been doing. Like I suck. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Help me out here. Help me figure this out. And I think that whatever we're talking about on here online, if it's not about praxis, it's just completely worthless.
That's it.
It's okay. It's okay for people to start off with some of the more heady stuff, the more scholastic, apologetic stuff, whatever. There is an importance there, but as long as it's kind of like, not to use Jordan Peterson as a Jordan Peterson, but one of the things he does have that's pretty good is like, once you've cleaned your room, then what? And then it's like, once you've kind of figured out this is the faith, then what? Then what do you do with that? Yes. Are you gonna do something with this? So again, it's not a criticism on people, but I really like that you brought that all back to praxis, because that's what it's about. And that's when people start asking you questions, because even some of my audience, they'll start asking me questions, and I'm like, you know what? Go talk to a priest, this and that. And they're like, well, I want to know why you did this or why you did that. And I'm like, why do they even care? And then they said is because like you come on camera and you just put it out there like, I suck, I messed this up, I did this whole thing.
Sure.
And then that praxis is what leads you to asking those questions. So I think, sorry to take you off, but going back to Bitcoin Mystery School, going through the chat, because I just joined it and I'm like going through, I was like blown away by that. I was like, so many questions about that. And like, glory to God, this and blah, blah, this. I'm like, what is going on in this group? And I started to realize, they're seeing the example and they want to know, what is it about this person who I trust? They're very, very honest and raw. Like, you're an honest and raw person, as am I. I won't play music on my radio show that I don't like just because it's this. I just not going to play it. You know what I mean? And they're like, play this, and I'm like, I just don't like it. And then they're like, now they're asking me, why don't you like it? Can you break it down? And I'm like literally insulting some of their favorite bands or artists or online people. Like, I'm literally, and I'm like, oh, they're going to hate me. They're going to hate me. And they just keep messaging me, dude, I love that rant. So going back to the Big Quiet Mystery School, I think because you have that as well, they're like, this guy's not going to lie to me. This guy's going to tell me the legit truth. And that's why I want to know more about this orthodox thing, because he's so picky. He's so only about the truth, and like that's the guiding principle is what is true. And I think you'll relate to that, because every punk I've talked to that's gone to orthodoxy, it was truth. They're just looking at what's true. I don't care what the cost is. What is true? So the Bitcoin Mystery School, the Telegram thing, that was my wow. I was like, whoa, these guys are legit. Not that I didn't know before, but I was like, this is like for real. There's no playing games here.
Truth is a person, right? So seek truth, find Christ. That's what it's going to be. And I think this is all I've ever tried to do in my life, right? Is seek truth. And truth is always going to be, the one thing about truth is that you're probably not going to like it. Like if when you actually encounter truth, you're probably not going to like it. You know what I mean? And I think that it's not that you like it anymore, but it's that you learn to accept that this is the way and this is the process. And man, I tell you, this is one reason why I think every young man should make lifting weights a praxis in his life.
Yes, sir.
Like I know that a lot of people now want to lean on like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I think is also good because there's a relationship with another person. Which the lifting weights is a solitary pursuit where in many ways there's no ranks, there's no ratings. The only critic ever is yourself. The only one who will know if you didn't get that rep is you. And it never gets easier. So like the thing is it's all you're going to be able to do as you get bigger and stronger is to be able to lift more weight, but you should always be at the same level of suffering that you were when you could reach when you could. All that changes is the amount of weight that you lift. But if you're doing it right, you should be just as tired and just as sore. It shouldn't get any easier. That's the point.
Yes, sir.
It should always be hard. It should always be as hard as it was on the first day. And if it is what you experience it doesn't get easier. That's the truth. That's the nature of the truth. It never gets easier. You just get stronger. You're never going to like it. It's never going to feel good. It's never that it's pleasurable for me to be in the gym, but when the difference is that because I know what the fruit is. Because I've tasted the fruit. Over a long period of time, and I have faith in the fruit that and then I've established and I understand. But this is the same thing with prayer. Right? Like it should be. It's not to what is the life of prayer of a saint. Is that easier? Does it get easier? No. The whole reason why they're wearing a hair shirt and doing midnight vigils and sleeping on the floor and all of these things is because it's supposed to be as hard as it was on day one when you couldn't keep your focus for 10 minutes. But now they can easily keep their focus for 10 minutes. So now it's got to be, their attention has to be for hours at a time, right? And this is the same. So all of these things are there, and this has been one reason why for me, finding Bitcoin, because different than a lot of these other things, it's a tool that has a fruit of allowing people to connect with one another. But what I didn't understand, and again, it's like, and this is where people are like, well, how do you reconcile? A lot of people are like, how do you reconcile Bitcoin from whatever they understand Bitcoin to be? Like, how do you reconcile your involvement with Bitcoin with you being an Orthodox Christian? Because that seems wrong. And I'm like, do you know how many people have converted to orthodoxy, not of me even trying, just being in the orbit of the things I'm doing with Bitcoin?
Yep.
Like, how could I not do it? Like, seeing that happen clearly, never mind that it came that a lot of these things come in prayer, right? Never mind that, you know, the times when I'll fast and pray will be the exact times that I'll have that a new protocol will be revealed to me, that these other things, and it's like, well, where is that coming from? Right? So
Yep.
these are, I think what it ultimately is again, it's orientation and praxis. It fundamentally doesn't matter what you're doing, but this is one thing that I will say. That praxis, and I think it goes to your sort of, you know, people getting into this apologetics and getting all into the, like, there are some people for whom that's their calling, but I do feel like there are some people who do that in lieu of praxis.
That's key.
Right?
Yes,
and it's
sir.
like, this is not instead of praxis.
Right.
And it also goes back to the Nikolai, Saint Nikolai Velimirovich, talking about ours is not a book religion, it's a dramatic mystery. That, like, what we're being called to in that case is, it's like, no, dude, you don't need you're not getting closer to God by memorizing verses out of the Bible.
Thank you.
You're not getting closer to God that way. And as a matter of fact, it can actually be, and if you're reading the lives of the saints, right? Saint Nicetas of Novgorod, it can, memorizing verses out of the Bible can actually be part of your prelist and your possession by the devil.
Yes, good point. Yes, sir. Yes, good point.
Because that, even this goes back to our whole thing, that it's like, oh, so that means the Bible isn't necessarily holy unless I'm oriented toward it. That correct. Because Saint Nicetas, that's the story. That's what's happening. He can quote the Old Testament. So, and I think that this is a hang-up that a lot of people will see, and I think that this is part of the Jordan Peterson phenomenon. That because he's quoting the Bible, that means he's properly oriented. No. Tradition teaches us no.
Yes.
That is not the measuring stick.
That's right.
That is not the measuring stick. Like, over and over again, we're being taught that this is not the measuring stick. And so it's like, again, these are tools that will start to lead you, because if you dig deeper, and Bitcoin has all of these concepts that are cosmic and spiritual. Even just, it allows us access to some of this math. And the thing that people don't know about mathematicians, like very advanced mathematicians, you're not going to meet advanced mathematicians who are straight up atheists.
That's right. That's
you won't.
So true.
Even
so
Einstein,
true.
When they asked him, even Einstein said, "Oh, well, I believe in Spinoza's God." Even he wasn't an atheist. He said, "I believe in God, but I don't believe in an active God, but I do believe in a God, the creator." That's Spinoza's God. Einstein believed that the order that is there is put there by a consciousness.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
They'll fall into the atheism and think that, oh yeah, science. No. Get deeper. When you get into the real deep physicists, the ones who are truly deep, and the deep mathematicians, they're all like, nah, we live in a created universe. That's where this whole simulation theory comes from.
It is, John Wheeler had the same thing.
That's it.
It's the same thing.
Anybody
he was looking for the expansion of the universe.
Into it.
Sorry, keep going.
No, anybody who's deep into it is so. This is the thing where it's like you see these people who are like, oh yeah, we're living in a simulation. These very smart people saying we're living in a simulation. These are just people who want to deny, because all you're saying is that there's a creator.
That's it.
That's all you're saying when you talk about the simulation there, because somebody made the simulation. That's the creator. And it's like, well, that's God. Right. We already knew this. You're acting like you're saying something new. No. We've always known.
Exactly.
And then
Exactly, and how you define that. Like that's actually one of the ways that led me back to the faith, was because I was studying all this Hermeticism stuff, and of course, phi. What is phi? The Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, all this stuff. It's not that those things don't exist. It's like you're looking at it, but your definition of who created it, who put it there, matters a difference. Because in Hermeticism, it's called the all. So they just instead of calling it God, they say the all. And even if you read their description of the all that permeates and penetrates all things, and then you go and you read the Nicene Creed, it's literally the same thing. The only difference is I know who the God is. Like it's defined. It's not all things. Like that's all things are actually nothing. So what do you really believe in? You believe in nothing. If everything's beautiful, then there's no ugly. If there's, you know what I mean? You need the contrast, right? So within, following the math led me to saying, okay, there is a creation of some sort. Some mind created this. And then to understand that when I started to look at orthodoxy, and it's really the stuff that I was learning in the Kabbalion, that's particularly the book that I was like drawn to.
Yep.
And so I took those 7 principles and I flipped it. Now it's all popular and stuff, but at one point it wasn't. And if you take those 7 principles and you flip them, you have orthodoxy. Like literally, you have orthodoxy. And the only difference is they define who it is and who the truth is, and the truth is a who, not a what, as we know as Orthodox people. And honestly, when you were starting to describe this in terms of Bitcoin, the scaling of which is astronomical, the way it functions, its beautiful simplicity, that all and stuff. Right away, I was like, oh, this is someone trying to explain. Like at least this is how I understood it, and I think you'll go into far more depth with this, because that's why I want to set you up on this. Is like you're looking at something tangible that can be used to trade things or this and that, but literally it's a network describing the infinite from this perspective, that there has to have been someone that kickstarted this entire thing to begin with. And how you define that matters. How you define that matters.
Well, it's and I think that this is what's so, again, it's that Bitcoin is so fractal in that way. That even, and I mean, and this is the reason why, and I've said it for a long time, like this is the reason why if you're not properly oriented toward God and toward Christ when you approach Bitcoin, and and this is one of the things, is that it's like you will because it's a spiritual technology, and so what you see around it is you see people who were materialists encountering this spiritual technology, and without knowing what they're doing, forming a cult, a religion around it.
Yes.
And that's why I say, like, all these cults, they turn it into an idol, right? Because they're like, as Father Turbo has said, idolatry is taking the part and calling it the whole.
Yep.
And it's like Bitcoin is not the whole. There's no cult about it. It's a tool, and when you use it and work with it because of its mathematics, and it's got a little bit of a lot of different very high level things that when you start to work with it, you're going to naturally feel something, because you're being drawn close to the Creator. You're being drawn close to the mind of God. Whether you want to or not, you're participating in it. And in that participation, it's like, if you're not already properly oriented, you wind up with what we have. And so it's like, you'll be drawn off into the avarice. You'll be drawn off into, I mean, there are some guys in the BTC maximalist cult. There was a period probably in 2019 specifically, where there were a couple of guys who were actually having like psychotic breaks, it seemed like, where they were encountering these things and having these moments. And a lot of people, I've had some of these moments being around Bitcoin in the early days. Roger Ver tells the story of when he first encountered Bitcoin. He didn't sleep for like 4 or 5 days, and his friend had to take him to the hospital for them to sedate him.
Really?
And this is
what was the reason?
It does that. It does that to you. Like if you're kind of a spiritual person, and like if you're open in that way and you start to have realizations about what this thing is, when you finally start to understand it, if there's no framework for you, which is part of what I'm doing in Bitcoin Mystery School,
I
putting a
see.
protective framework for you to even encounter these things.
Right? That makes so much sense.
Because if you don't have it and you have
Yes.
nowhere to put it,
Yes.
you're just like,
Yes.
I'm encountering this thing and it's so big, it's
Yes.
bigger than anything that I've ever encountered, and I don't know what I can't do, and your
Yes.
brain just goes,
Yep.
and it fuzzes
Yep.
out, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of people and then you start to add things on afterwards, and that's where the enemy can play. The enemy loves to play in that realm, and so you know, people are encountering these things. They don't have a framework around it, but it can happen. I think this can happen with a lot of things. I think that this
Absolutely.
can happen with a lot. I know that this happens with musicians.
I was gonna just say yes. I've seen it. I've experienced it.
Of
Not
course,
myself, but I've seen others.
And writers, and I know martial artists this can happen with, and a lot of people. It's like
Yes.
when you unlock a certain level,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of these sort of things fall into place, but you have no conceptual framework to stick them inside of.
Bravo.
You're
bravo,
just
yes.
you're
Yes.
lost. You're lost, right?
Can I just
go ahead, please.
Sorry, really odd moment I'm going to give you right now. Is it okay? Because I love where this conversation is going, and I think that talking about the spirituality from an Orthodox perspective of all the things we're talking about, I don't want to stop it. I want to keep going. Can I just ask you if it's okay that we could do another episode at another time to break down some of the more tangible concerns on? So I just thought I'd say that. I was just going to come out and say that because I really don't want you to stop. Keep going. So basically, you're at the point of you need a container. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you lead me. Where should I go?
No, I love where you're going.
Keep talking about this stuff.
No, that's where I want you to go. So I'm going to lead you. So, like I said, we're going to put like a pause here and say that we're going to have another episode where we talk about more of the nuts and bolts of cryptocurrency and all that.
Sure.
Only because I think it's a very important conversation now more than ever, and your perspective on it. And I'm not just saying that. Honestly, like I'm not just saying that. Legitimately, I'm a raw dude, and if you ever check my stuff out, I'll tell you if it's shit. Excuse my language. You made that space make the most sense to me out of anybody else I've ever heard.
I appreciate it.
Talk.
Appreciate it.
And not only does it make sense, there's like an intuitive that explains all of these other things.
Right.
You connected, so it fits with where I want to go, and it's exactly where you were just.
Let's do it.
You were just at. You clicked things that were like they were like kind of like loose strings hanging in my head. So my nephew is the techie behind that world, and I'm the geopolitical spiritual guy behind that world, if that makes any sense.
Yep,
so then when we were sitting down and taking the course together, we were completing each other's sentences for the very first time. Like you bridged something between my world and his.
Good.
And I think that's a very important thing to understand, because I walked into it a maxi of nothing. But leaning towards your perspective on USDT and all this stuff, I'm like, you started to make sense to me. The thing that was missing, I'm like, why would they create these CBDCs? Why do they have cross-border payments? There's no such thing as borders. And then as you were explaining it, I didn't even have to ask you. I just knew, bam, bam, it all makes sense. So going back to what you were just leaving off, and I think if this all fits together, you were creating a container. And myself as a musician and as someone that took a spirit, like when I was in the metaphysical world, my number one concern or interest was consciousness. I got into it trying to understand what is consciousness, what is this thing that looks back at me at the mirror. That's always been my number one thing.
Same.
It's the only thing I've ever cared about. It's what got me into Hermeticism, and then. Because of that, when I was experimenting with that stuff, as well as as a musician, I felt something entering and walking out, changing a crowd. In my head, I would think, I want the crowd to do this, and it would happen. And I didn't know how to explain that to anybody else but me. Only I know if I'm lying. Like only I would know, okay, that just happened. I would think like this and this will occur, and bam, it would happen. Or like, I wonder about this subject, and then a song would be downloaded in my head. And all of this stuff. And I would be in band practice, and I would make this one jarring move, and everyone would move with me like fish or birds, all of that stuff. So where I'm going with this is I had a container that my number one goal my point, my GPS point was truth. That's all I cared about at any cost, and I wanted the actual truth. That protected me in a lot of the weird things I got into. That didn't allow for me to go too far into psychedelics or some of the other weird stuff, because I dabbled and I realized I don't have that control. I didn't know what the definition of that control was, but it was the container you're referring to. So when you started to talk about Bitcoin, and the way you started off the conversation in Bitcoin Mystery School, I was like, this dude gets it. He gets the container. You're calling it a container. To me, it was the map. You're giving us the legend key. The legend key. You know, like you can look at a map, but if you don't have the legend key, you don't know where the things are. I'm like, he's giving us the key, dude. And then as we were going through it, forgive me for calling you dude every 5 minutes. All of a sudden, I started to understand that. So where I want you to go next is exactly where you were. You're building the container. You're describing the container so that we understand the majesty of experiencing the crazy that some of the characters you just defined. And why they went off on the deep end is because they didn't have the container that you did. You had an understanding before coming into it, before orthodoxy even. And I bet, and I'm just speaking for you, but I bet there was like a bridge moment from when you went to the aha to prayer to orthodoxy that bridged the two together and kind of made it all kind of click together. So that's where I want you to go, is the container, that clicking together, and how that all fit.
Yeah, so that's actually really good, because it draws me back to the, I had mentioned that I had gone and listened to this Darmaid McCullough, and because it was because of Christopher Hitchens, right, that I listened to this audiobook of Christianity the First 3,000 Years. But I had left out, it's funny that you say, like, what's the bridge? Because I had left out that really one of the big impulses for that was my involvement in Bitcoin. One of the things that I was seeing, and like I was saying, that I had seen, the most profound things for me was actually living through schisms, like that Bitcoin has forked. But like, people know that Bitcoin has forked, and they know that there's different networks, but not many people lived through the human experience, because it forked because of very human conflicts about what is true and what is this thing. This question about what is Bitcoin, what is it supposed to do, but most importantly, what are we supposed to do with it, and how are we supposed to behave in the context of as Bitcoiners? What does it mean to be a Bitcoiner? And I saw them, and it's not that I knew church history, but I immediately understood that what I was witnessing were religious schisms.
Yes.
Like, because I'm always looking for a pattern in things, and I was like, no, these are religions. These have the nature of religious schisms. And it was in 2019 I had been through two. So I had been through the 2017 BTC BCH split. I wasn't heavily involved in that, but I was very early. We built our business on Bitcoin Cash, so I was very early in adopting sort of the upstart fork. And then I needed to really look back, because now it worked and it solved some problems, and I needed to look back, and I was involved with those people, and so I was getting the story, right? And I think right when that split happened, you can go, and I actually interviewed Roger Ver about this in my on my show, the Vin Armani show. And you can see some of this stuff, and on the show, I was even saying, man, these things seem like religions to me. And with Ethereum, to this day, I say Ethereum is Islam and Vitalik is Muhammad. Like it fits it perfect, because Islam is a Christian heresy, right? Islam is a Christian heresy that added these other things into it, right? But it's like a Christian heresy from outside the church, which makes it not. It's like it's almost like Mormonism is the same way, right? But I used to call Dash the Mormons. I say Dash is the Mormons.
I can see it.
Islam.
I can see it.
For very long time, right? I was saying this. Hold on, I think I just lost my headphones. I was saying this for a very, very long time. And is it okay? I'm not. You hear me okay?
Now you're okay. There was a minute. Yeah.
Okay. And it was in that I was like, well, maybe I could understand. Maybe I could understand this whole thing better, right? Maybe I could understand how these schisms are happening and what this is all about. And so I think that at that point, I was still approaching it as though this is all metaphor, and maybe I can look at this history. That's why it hit me, right? Like maybe I could look at this history, but I think that it was it was coming into it from the beginning, understanding that the basis of this is already somehow religious, somehow spiritual, and then having the respect and understanding from my previous practices that like, okay, and also trying to communicate to people that like, no, it's not a metaphor. Like if I'm saying that this is a religion, I'm not using a metaphor. And this was also very helpful in 2020 when I was trying to explain to people very early on. And I think I was one of the first, they eventually called it a mass formation or whatever. But in March 2020, you could go back. I've got the receipts, the tweets where I'm like, this is what the Salem witch trials would have looked like. This is a mass hysteria. In March of 2020, I'm calling it a mass hysteria. Right? The receipts are there.
For sure.
You could go the tweets are there. And I called it that the whole time. And then I started telling people, oh no, this woke thing is a church, like a real church. It's a real religion. Right? But I think it's because I'm able to talk about these things because like for me, the world has been enchanted since I've been aware. Because I've been participating in the spiritual realm, and I knew that the spiritual realm was affecting everything. There is no, we're just going to have a discussion about politics right now. Because it's like, no, there is no such thing as we're just going to talk about politics, because Ephesians 6:12. Like, whatever you're seeing in politics, you want to talk about the specifics of a political movement or something, that is the lowest level at which you could talk about something. And if you're only going to talk about it on those terms, you're actually robbing yourself of the ability to see the larger pattern, because you're going to be like, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's like this over here, this thing that happened 100 years. They're nothing alike.
No. Yep.
They're like, well, they're like, somebody would be like, oh, these two are they're not the same. And it's like, yeah. They're nothing alike at this level. But at this level, that's like, and I think when you look at it from a vein of spiritual warfare, it's much, much easier, because like I could show you like a communications officer who's on a radio, and I can show you a fighter pilot, and I can show you an artillery officer sitting on a cannon, and you're like, those are three different things. And I'm like,
but they're not.
No. They're all communicating with each other to strike a single target over there. They're all part of the same army.
Exactly. That is so annoying that people don't get that.
6:12.
People
don't get it.
No, they just don't. And even when they, you know what the worst part is? When they think they get it and they're preaching to others, and then the moment comes, I'm like, dude, you're the one that said this was a uniparty. What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? You cannot, I'm sorry to go off on this, but you cannot vote your way out of this. You can't vote harder on this thing, man. It drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely up the wall. And I'm happy that you brought this up, because even when I was looking at like what Instagram is from the perspective of when before there was TikTok and all that, when I was just looking at Instagram from like the perspective of our backgrounds in like the occult or whatever, I'm like, this is a psychotic making machine. This machine literally gives you a diluted version of what you think you look like. As soon as I saw the filters, I'm like, oh, this is literally creating schizophrenics. This is literally creating like legitimate schizophrenics. And then as soon as the events of 2019 happened, when I started seeing the event 201 thing, so I'm like, oh boy, they're going to do this. They're going to try to see. I'm from Toronto, so I remember what SARS was like because Toronto was the only place on earth that actually took it seriously. And we lost a lot of, I'm like, oh, this is SARS part 2. This is SARS part 2. And then when they started putting on the malachias on their thing, I'm like, you guys are literally, so when I heard you first talk about it as a religion, and yes, to anyone that's watching, I can attest you were one of the first. Because I remember, I can't remember if it was James Corbett or someone reposted one of your posts that said that it was a religion. I think it was James Corbett. And then I was like, okay, this dude gets it. This is literally their sacraments. This is literally their crucifix that they're wearing on their face. They're letting you know where they're coming from. And I was working at Lush at the same time. So I don't know if you know what Lush is, but you can't get more woke than Lush. Like literally, that was woke before woke was a thing, and it started from day one. Day one. And the irony is, like, going back to the woke religion, because I experienced it firsthand, and I'm the opposite of everything they love. At that time, I was super muscular. I was white. I was male. I was uber straight. There was no question of where I was going on. And when they shut down the factory and nobody wanted to go to work after that, guess the 5 people that went and ran that factory by themselves were all of that identity, except for one guy. He was black, but he was everything else that we were. And we all went in there and we ran the factory, and we were more successful at it in this short period of time. And that's when it dawned on me. I'm like, this is not only a religion, this is them letting the world know we are here and we're going to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it started with, the whole Trump thing, the delusion, whatever they call it. What do they call Americans? Trump delusion syndrome, whatever. That started to tear people apart. And when I saw Instagram, I'm like, this is literally their hypnotic device. Not just like everyone calls it a black mirror, this and that, but they don't really understand. Instagram made me understand, this isn't just, they're literally casting a spell. They're making the entire population in a point of panic. Blue versus red, everyone's gonna then they even did that in the tech world with the Elon Musks and then the Bill Gates, and then you had the same pattern, the same thing. I'm like, how are you guys not seeing this? This is the same characters from the cartoon movies you watched, and then they throw this device at you, telling you look prettier than you are, that you have a right to say that these things. Sorry, I went off there, but because you just nailed it. It was like, it drove me crazy. It's still, what bothers me more is that the people that were calling out some of the stuff in 2020 that I agreed with at that time, are the same ones that are falling for the same, they're falling for the same malakia. Back to your point of like the 3 military people all are on the same team. They're falling in the same trap. And I'm like, malakias, how do you not see? It's the same game you were complaining about in 2020. They just upped their hypnosis. That's all they did.
Well,
is they made you think
the whole key. The whole key is to put everything. This is the trick of the whole like atheist materialist. This is the enemy's trick. Is like, no, everything is at this level. Everything is at this level, because if everything is at this level, then, and that's what you can actually know somebody who is at that level, because you will make an obvious connection between something that like where 2 things are like obviously part of the same pattern, and they will tell you no, they're completely different.
Yep.
And it's in many different spheres, and it's just like, you are operating at the lowest level of consciousness. Right? Because you don't even have the capability like that. I'm like, hey, this is an apple. This is an orange. They are both fruits. And they're like, those are 2 different objects. They're different colors. They're different consistencies. Look, they're not even, one is round, one is, or a banana, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, but they grow on trees. And look, here's this process. It's 2 trees, and then it buds, and then it flowers, and then it turns into this thing, and then look inside. There's seeds, and if I plant these seeds, they're can't you see they're
totally
different? Can't you see they're totally different? And it's just like, whoa. So really, when wisdom is the ability to make really, when you talk about higher states of consciousness, that's what it means. If people are like, I don't even understand what that means of raising to the next level of consciousness. All that it means is that you're able to see the connections between how these things are connected at a higher level. So that's why they're like, at the highest state of consciousness, what is it? Everything is connected. And it's like, that's just pablum.
Yes.
Unless you actually understand what it is. Yep. And you understand what it is by seeing someone who's operating at the lowest level. Now, the problem is that can be, and this is where the spiritual but not religious people fall into schizophrenia, because then the key is to make people connect things that are not connected. Because that is what schizophrenia is, right? If you've got the schizophrenia autism spectrum, autism is that lowest level where it's like, no, an apple and an orange are not the same thing. And you're like, no, dude, I'm not saying that they're the same thing. I'm saying that they are part of a pattern that operates at a higher level. This is the reason why, like, someone who's highly autistic can't do the facial, can't tell from somebody's face their mood, because my face is not the same as your face. So my smile can't be the same as your smile because I'm operating at this level, right? But a step higher is that, like, yeah, they're different faces, but it's the same expression on the face, and the expression has a meaning at this level. Right? So an autist can't make any connections. Extreme autism is no connections. Extreme schizophrenia is connections that aren't there.
Yes. Well put.
Right? Things that those are the two spectrums. It's the autism schizophrenia spectrum. That's the real spectrum.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And a healthy individual, and an individual that's properly calibrated, sees the connections that are real, and isn't affected by the connections that aren't. But it's like, to your point about Instagram, if you need any more evidence of this, there are tons of stories now of plastic surgeons reporting that women are coming to them with filtered photos on their phone and saying, make me look like the filter. Make me look like I look when it's filtered. And so this is already... We've already skewed beauty. And the second that you skew beauty, like, you're moving further away from God. Because that is how we experience God. Like, the feeling of being hit with beauty. I mean, this is what walking into a cathedral is supposed to... Like, this is the feeling that you're going... This is how you know that the cathedral is built properly. We were talking about aesthetics. Right? Is that is it beautiful? It's harmony as versus dissonance, to go to a music example. And I mean, it's when you're, like a perfect seventh, and like a choir nails it, and the hairs on your arm stand up. You can't prevent it from happening, because you're encountering an order. You're encountering a beauty that is a natural order, and a natural beauty, and an incarnational order and beauty. Those filters are not nature. They're not natural. And so I think that this is one of the things of, if people are properly oriented toward beauty and toward those things, that what you drive into. And so one of the things that where I knew, like, oh, this is about Bitcoin, and it's why we talk about it in Bitcoin Mystery School, is that, like, oh no, it's harnessing and it's reflecting natural law and this order that is far beyond anything for us to comprehend, invent, or any of these things, because the numbers are just too big and the order is just too profound.
Yes.
Like, as we use it, it's just too profound that, like, this could only have been revealed. This could not have thought our way to this.
Yeah, the other thing that made me click everything that you said when you were talking about it in Bitcoin Mystery School was everything you just said there, but then you added the point of its pure, beautiful simplicity. And only the truth can be that simple. So that's when you got me. It was like, when you showed me how simple it was, and like, I had bought this, Manny and myself had both bought this, like, this thing that you constantly hear about Bitcoin. That's like, it's this crazy formula, and then each computer has to, and then when you showed it to me and we did it, I was like, oh my God, it's so clear. It's so basic. It's so simple. It's like the first time I re-looked at orthodoxy, and I said, oh my God, it was in front of me the whole time. I'm out there looking everywhere, but where it was at home, it was at my house. The simplicity got me. Like, I'm still looking for holes in orthodoxy. Like, I'm still trying to punch holes, and I haven't found one, man. And then when you put Bitcoin in that way, to me, it was like, it's the massiveness of it and the simplicity of explaining it. There's no hole to punch. It's so basic, you can't punch a hole in it.
Well, that's elegance. Right? I think that's really when we talk about something that's elegant, is that it's simple, and it's so seamless would be also another, word where you're like, I can't see the seams here.
Yes.
It's all functioning, when you look at, like, a Swiss watch, or when they talk about, like, German engineering, and it's like all of these joints are just together. Or there's this Japanese like furniture and cabinetry style where it's just these like they put together the block and they're like perfectly joined, but there's no sort of adhesive or glue or nails or screws, and it's just the design of it, and it can only fit perfectly into this, and then it's like locked in forever. And that is so much harder to do than something complex. But it's so simple. There's nothing but the thing there. It's just the simple thing that's there, and it's like, no, this is a mark of like true mastery of the creator, that it has this level of it's robust in its unstructured simplicity. This is what Satoshi Nakamoto says at the conclusion of the white paper. The system is robust in its unstructured simplicity. It allows us to build so many things on top of it, and I think that these are the things. But again, it's interesting because and I included this in my first book, Tao of the Gigolo, which I've now taken out of print because it was Father Turbo was like, oh, that's got to come out of print. That's scandalous. But there's one essay in it that was from way before. And it was something it was the only thing that I included that I had written years and years before, and it was something that I shared on a forum back in my pickup artist days, and it was, and many people have said this one book would be worth it for just this one essay that's inside of it. And it's just the distinction of complex versus simple, and easy versus difficult, or difficult versus easy. And that the true things, the truest things, the things that are the most worth doing are simple and difficult. Like those are the things. So they are very simple and very difficult. Like so basically most things that we encounter and we think are difficult are actually just complex, but they become easy once we're familiar with the complexity. It's just that we haven't encountered it before, and so it's complex. And I would say something, and like, so easy and difficult is about how stressful is it for you mentally and emotionally, right? And it's like, that could be something like playing a video game, Call of Duty, right? It's complex when you first like step into it, but then when you've been doing it for a long time, you could do it for hours and hours and hours, and it becomes easy and maybe even enjoyable, right? But then you have things that are like complex. So you have simple and easy things. But the important things to think about are the things that are simple and difficult. And in that context, how I was using it was like there were two examples that I gave. So we've used one already. And that's like doing a 600-pound bench press. Or running a marathon. Like there's nothing complex about running a marathon, one foot in front of the other, but it's incredibly simple, incredibly difficult. Doing a 600-pound bench press, incredibly simple. It's one motion. That couldn't be more simpler, crazy difficult, and many people will spend their life trying to accomplish it, right? Because it's of what it's all the simple movements you're going to have to. And in that context, I was also saying that, the simple and difficult things, in that case, it was like walking up to a girl and starting to talk to her.
Yes, good point.
Right? Hello, walking up and saying hello, but for how many men, and I think all men at some point in their life, how is that not the most difficult thing that you could possibly think to do? The thing that's creating the most, I don't know if I can do it, because what's going to happen if I get rejected? Because you know what? Even getting rejected is simple. But you look at the praxis of orthodoxy, and it's when I encountered it and I was like, oh, this is simple. Like the praxis is simple. Do your morning and evening prayers, an akathist here and there, fast on the fast days. Right. What could be more simple, and what could be a better reflection of the simple and difficult than a fast? It's the ultimate reflection. And it's why it's the pinnacle of spiritual praxis in every spiritual tradition.
Yes, that's true.
Right? Including even if you're going to summon demons, you're going to fast.
Yep.
You're going to fast before you do that. Crowley will tell you that.
Yep.
Right?
It's true.
So it's like it doesn't matter what you're going to, before you do ayahuasca, it's called dieta, right? You're going to do a fast. And the crazy thing is you're going to fast in the same way that you fast when you're Orthodox.
It's so true.
The ayahuasca dieta is the Orthodox fast.
Yeah. That's the inversions.
These are all of the things, right? But it's to say that when you encounter the truth, one of the ways that you'll know it's the truth is it will be simple and difficult, which is, like I said, whenever you encounter the truth, you're not going to like it.
I love that. Because
the truth is always difficult, but it's always simple. Somebody will be like, "Oh man, I really want to lose weight. Stop eating."
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
Oh, what do you mean? But what kind of diet should I? No, just don't eat. Do you want to lose weight? Just don't eat. There was a interview that I did for an XM station. Some buddies of mine, Jordan Harbinger, he's got a big podcast now, but at that time they were doing pickup podcasts and stuff. He's an old friend from the pickup artist days, and I had just finished the first season of Gigolos, and they brought me in, him and his brother AJ, for their XM show. I've got a recording of it on my YouTube channel, probably one of the oldest videos. But there's a point where they asked me, "Oh, so we've got all these guys, and like they would want to know how to like be a gigolo, like how to get into like your profession and everything. Like, what are the things that you would advise? What's the top things that you would advise that they could do? Like what?" And I know that they were expecting some like, and I said, get in the gym, eat clean every day, and be the most fit man in any room that you walk into. And they were like, "Well, but we've already got guys doing that. Like, I mean, what else?" And I was like, "No, start there."
Yep.
Because that's probably all you need.
Yep. True. I've been there.
Because I was looking at the guys that I was working with who were my colleagues, and that's all they needed.
Yep.
But it's true. Like, but that's a lot. People would ask me back in the day when I was super shredded, because I had to have my clothes off on TV, right? And it was like, they would be like, "Oh, well, what do you eat? What's your diet?" Because you're, and I would say chicken breast and vegetables. And they go, "Yeah, but what else?" Well, what else?
That's it. No. Yeah.
Oh,
it also shows
I don't
discipline.
know. I don't know if I could do that, dude.
Yeah,
what could be more simple than chicken breast and vegetables? It can't get more simple than that. But it's too difficult for you, right? Well, that's why you can't be built like this. It's very elegant here. It's simple and difficult, and that's the truth.
That's so well put, and that connects everything so well. Simple and difficult.
That's it.
Even in the statement as you make it, it's simple and difficult, and that those truths are the biggest. Those are the ones that like go, aha. Those are aha moments. That is such a great point. Wow, Cyprian, man, I don't even know what to say after that one. Like, because you connected pretty much everything we've discussed from the beginning with just that. You know what I mean? Like, you really did. You summed up everything that we were trying to talk about, from Bitcoin to God to finding orthodoxy, to going to the gym, to the truth. You're not going to like it. To Father Turbo. Father Turbo is that he embodies that very
He is the
phrase.
Embodiment of simple and difficult, and I think that's why he triggers and angers so many people.
Yes, it's so true, and why he draws and attracts a type of personality. Because when I see the people that like, I'm not talking about the people that like, and forgive me for anyone out there if you think I'm talking about you, but I'm not talking about the people that quote Father Turbo incorrectly, but the ones that like, that have had like personal conversations. They'll be like Father Turbo, he says this. I'm like, that's not what I know. He doesn't agree with that.
Right. Well, because we don't. That's the real place for us if we want to grow, is to just embrace it. That's the cross. That's what we're called to. What could be simpler? What could be simpler and more difficult than the cross?
Yeah, that's so true.
It's the most simple thing, like nailed to a cross. What could be to two pieces of wood? What could be more simple and what could be more difficult than that?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's so true. That is really true. Like, I'm trying to analyze in my head. There's nothing harder and nothing easier.
Or less complex. Nothing more difficult and nothing less complex. It's so simple.
Wow. Yeah. That's a mind blower.
And to take it back to your grandfather, the Jesus prayer.
Yep.
People would like
Yep.
people are like, that's it,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
like, well,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
well, can you do it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, I mean,
Yep.
can you really do it?
Yes. Yep.
That's the question. Like, not can you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Not can you say it? Can it be real when you are doing it, when you are saying it? How many times can it actually be real? And how many of those repetitions, how many do you actually get with full attention and full worship and full orientation toward it? 3, 4?
So true. Yep. Yep.
Like,
Yep. I know.
is it really that? Is it really?
Yeah.
It's super
Yeah,
simple and it's super difficult.
It is. And if you task it to someone, you're like, for an hour, just say these few words. Yeah, that's so easy. I could do that. And they're like, can you though? It's so true, because I no matter how many hours of meditation I had under my belt, the Jesus prayer was next level, totally different. It was the same but totally different.
Totally different.
It was the same but totally different. Wow.
Because it's oriented at the actual truth. It's like it's the whole. It's not the part.
Yes.
You know, it's the whole thing. And yeah, man. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say.
You know what? Let's end it here, because that's like
cool.
The best place to end it. After finishing with those 3 wows in a row, I don't think we can go any further than that.
No. It's good.
Listen, if you we didn't get into a lot of stuff, but we're going to talk about that later. This was one of my favorite interviews I've done. I'm just saying that, calling it out right now. It was amazing. I think this is going to help a lot of people, definitely in my audience. If you have anything to plug, see, I'm lost for words. So I don't even want to get into character. If you have anything to plug, just like I can't even get into character. I can't even.
The Royal Path. Listen, people should check out the Royal Path. Our YouTube channel.
Yep.
I think we all have a feeling like it might be taken down soon. You know, we got one warning. We got one warning already for something, and they took down one episode. And I think that we're entering into something right now. I don't know what it is, but I do feel that we're again entering into something, and it's been weird that we haven't. There's been several weeks now that have gone where we are not recording, and our next episode is our 100th episode, and I don't want to do anything weird about that, but it's just like. I don't know. I have a feeling it might not be around forever, so you should take advantage of it while you can. I'll say it like that.
We're going to talk about that once this episode, once we're done recording this. I plug you guys often because it's honestly top 3 podcasts of all time. Oh, by the way, I'm going to say it on air because my people will like hearing this. We spoon bombed you on Instagram, where there's a bunch of spoons in your comment boxes.
Explain to me what that means. I saw those and I was like, what is happening here? What is this?
Okay, I'm so happy this came up. So here's the spoon.
Yeah.
It's hidden in plain sight. So honestly, I don't know. It just kind of happened by mistake, and it just became our symbol. And then everyone started putting up spoons in our little thing. And I was going off, obviously in a positive way, about the Royal Path. Father Turbo. We've been playing some of his unreleased music on our show. You know what? I'm like, out of love and respect, they've been getting, attacked a little bit. Let's all go and spoon bomb them. But then I'm like, maybe Father Turbo will think this is a bad thing. And I was like, on air, I was like, maybe we shouldn't do this. It was like, and then I messaged Father Turbo the next day. I'm like, just a heads up, we spoon bombed you guys. And you know how he responds with like very little. He just responds with a heart. That's all it was.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. I figured it was good. It was good. I was like, okay. I think this is good.
It was love. It was love. Yes. It was love. You guys have a lot of love on our channel. We talk about you guys a lot. Honestly, when I go off on rants sometimes, because like I can't keep up with all the podcasts and stuff out there that I'm trying to put out, they'll be like, you got to check out the Royal Path. You got to check out the Royal Path. I'm like, why? They're like, I mean, I will, but like, what do you mean? And they're like, you guys are on the same like, thing, whatever. And then I go and I check it out, and I was like, whoa. Like, even Manny, my nephew, he'll listen to you guys ahead of time because I'm like busy editing and stuff.
Yeah.
And he'll just like look up at me at one point and he was like, I'm like, what? He's like, the Royal Path. I was like,
how it happens. How it happens.
It's
brother.
amazing.
Yeah, I love it. Glory to God.
Anyways, honestly, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for taking out the time. And I don't know what to say after that, man. It was awesome. We'll see you soon,
great.
brother.
Thank you. Thank you.